tell you a little bit about MTS. So MTS was a master's student at Western, but before this, and you might need to help me pronounce some of the schools you went to. But obviously he's from, well, not obviously, he's from Bangladesh. And how do you pronounce this university?
University of Dhaka.
And so he got his bachelor's degree there in zoology, and then he also did a master's degree in parasitology. So I got to know him in 2015, where he started his master's degree with, I think it was initially with Meta?
Initially with...
Was it with me always, or was it with Dr. Sonnegaard initially?
It was always with you. I mean, I thought about working with her, but then she went to maternity leave.
Okay, gotcha.
So I
gotcha.
Yeah, we were thinking about having a collaboration. You remember?
Oh yes.
During the ovarian cancer research.
Oh yes.
But it didn't happen.
And so in 2015, was it? I guess it was 2000. So you started with me, and then 2016, I became the interim department chair for our department of biological sciences. So I became pretty stretched thin at that time. And we also at that time had a lot of international students, a lot from Saudi Arabia, for instance. And I probably had a lion's share of them actually in my lab. I probably finished around 50 grad students, believe it or not. And 7 grad students were finished while I was the interim department chair, which is a lot. I don't know of any department chair that did it for 2 years that would have finished. I mean, there's many that never finish a grad student while they're department chair. But MTS was a big part of my success in being able to do that. So he was involved with helping at least 2 or 3, if not 4 grad students in my lab that were finish up their master's theses or projects. And he was a go-to person, one of the more prolific students in my department easily. You can tell them a little bit about your project if you want. What was the title of your thesis?
That was like, I have a few slides. Yes, a few slides.
Did you put it on your CV?
I did.
Did you put it in our publications?
Yes. In the publications list, you will find this one. Yes.
Where's that?
You see that 27, number 6.
Yeah. So he was looking. This was actually a little bit of a collaboration. Well, I don't know if Andrea was that involved with this. Was she?
No, it was with a professor from Southern Illinois University.
Actually,
Northern Illinois University. I forgot his name. His name is... Oh, he's in my research gate. But
he's actually in California now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's a short name, but I can't remember either right off.
I also cannot remember. Sorry about that.
It's an easy name, but I can't remember it either right now. And then he's actually done a lot of publications. So one of the big things I wanted you to get from this as we start going up his CV is he's actually now a PhD candidate at Louisiana State University in Shreveport as a health science center. There is a difference between candidate and PhD student. A candidate has passed his oral exams. And so he's kind of now like all but dissertation. He's finished his classwork usually, and he's just working on his research only at that point. So I've seen people that walk into a PhD program before they know better, they're calling themselves a PhD candidate. But the fact of the matter is they're actually a PhD student until they passed their oral exams. Was that challenging, MTS?
It was challenging, yes. It was challenging. I will share some
good
pros and cons of everything.
That sounds great. And so one of the things you'll want to work on is a curriculum vitae if you haven't already done so. Particularly if you're interested in an academic career, it's kind of like a resume, but again, it tends to be towards academic kind of things. So you may have things like more of your research experiences or your publications and teaching experiences and so forth. Um, looks like you've just been completely a research student looking at your teaching record there. But one of the things about it, and again, MTS can tell you what he's thinking about and planning, but one of the things is you always want to make sure you're always kind of hitting the check marks. I'm presenting, I'm working on a paper, I'm starting a new paper, I'm and maybe a lot of your advisors may poo-poo teaching, but if you're interested in teaching, try to get a little bit of that experience. But your goal as a PhD student is research. A lot of kids or students that go into those kind of programs think it's just more classwork, but it's really all, ultimately, it's all really about the research when it comes to getting a decent job. And here you can see lots of different presentations that Imtiaz has done, and he did an excellent job presenting here as well, and he still includes me as one of his references. Imtiaz, did you want to add anything to what maybe I mentioned about CVs or anything like that?
I guess you covered almost all the important points. Like if you have one strong point in your career, so you can highlight that. Let's say research is my strong point, so I highlighted that in here that I attended, and also like I had multiple awards, so I pointed them. But if somebody doesn't have it, it's okay. You have other experiences, other expertise in some other areas, highlight those. And one important thing, very important, academic CV and industry, like job seeking CV, these are completely different. Okay, so don't apply to an industry job using an academic CV. So what you are looking at here, this is an academic CV where I elaborated everything. It is like a 4 pages long CV, right? But the job CV, if you apply to an industry job, it should not be more than 2 pages long, and you don't need to write down all of your publications and everything, right? You can say that, hey, go to this website. You can make a website and refer to that website to find my publications. Go to that website, because academics industry CVs are very short.
We also have Google Scholar. I noticed this was a good reminder here where you actually got and this is a really good standout thing from your time at WIU, but you ended up getting a research, you ended up getting first place.
Right.
Presentation.
Right. I also got a first place in this university also. It is you see, yes, it is like back to back. That excellent. WIO, it was in 2017 and this was in 2018.
That's really good. And then again, so it is one of those things where you'll put a lot of things in it. And then once you start getting a strong CV with like publications, and some of the things that weren't that important or impressive may fall off depending on what it was, or they may stay on if it's of value too. But it can be a long record, particularly if it's an academic CV.
Right. This is particularly an academic CV.
So let me.
And before starting, I would like to give you a brief overview of my presentation. So I will start with a small talk, like introductory talk about prostate cancer and its metastasis mechanism. Then I will introduce you with my 2 protein of interest, that is tassel-like kinases and MK5. Then I will tell you about my research work and findings. Then I will very briefly describe how is my life look like doing PhD at LSU HSC, and then obviously how studying at WIU helped me to ace in my PhD career. So by the way, can you guys see my cursor which I am moving?
Yes.
Okay, because it is important, I will show you several things throughout my presentation. Okay, so this is a prostate cancer. I will start with a prostate cancer statistics. Okay, I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact that prostate cancer is the most frequently diagnosed cancer in American men, and it is the second leading death-causing malignancy in American men after lung cancer. 1 in every 8 American men will suffer from prostate cancer during his lifetime. Although the mortality rate has been significantly decreased from the last 2 decades, but it is both the infection rate and also the death rate is increasing for the last couple of years. So I put side by side the statistics of 3 different years. This is 2019, 2020, and this data is for 2021, and you can see both the death rates, both the number of deaths and the new cases are increasing. Okay, and if you look at in here, the number is increasing. So last year the death rate was 10%, but this year it is 11%, which is very alarming. Now, what is prostate cancer? First, what is prostate? So prostate is a walnut or a ping pong ball-sized gland which surrounds the urethra. Is it essential for life? It is not essential for survival, but it is essential for fertility because it produces seminal fluid that nourishes the sperm and also transport the sperm. Okay, so prostate cancer is the malignant tumor growth, or I should not say it is a tumorous growth in the prostate gland that is called prostate cancer. Okay, so what are the causes of prostate cancer? Researchers does not know yet, but they know that androgen receptor signaling plays a big role in prostate cancer, and also mutations in the DNA, mutations in the oncogenes or tumor suppressor genes plays a role in prostate cancer development. So what are oncogenes? Oncogenes are those genes which proliferate, which promotes the proliferation uncontrollably. And tumor suppressor genes, what are these? This provides a checkpoint of uncontrollable cell growth. So when there is a mutation, some of the oncogenes may become activated, so it promotes abnormal cell proliferation. But again, some of the mutations in the tumor suppressor genes inactivate them, so they cannot check that abnormal growth. What are the risk factors of prostate cancer? Obviously, the first and foremost risk factor is age. So men above 50 years old are more prone to have prostate cancer. And the second risk factor is race or ethnicity. So African American men are more prone to prostate cancer than white men. Prostate cancer is more prevalent in North America, Europe, and Australia, but it is less prevalent in Asian countries. Okay, then obviously, like the sedentary lifestyle, diet, obesity, these are the other risk factor of prostate cancer. Organ confined prostate cancer, when the cancer just is in the gland, then it is easily treatable. But when it metastasizes to other organs, that is like the death sentence for the patient. So, and now the diagnosis and treatment of prostate cancer. So how prostate cancers are being diagnosed. So normally, if a doctor suspects, he or she prescribes a blood test. Blood test detects PSA. What is PSA? PSA is prostate specific antigen. It is a protein that is secreted only by the prostate gland. Okay, so if a patient's blood circulation has more than 4 nanogram per ml of PSA, then the doctors suggest that that patient may have prostate cancer, but doctors cannot be sure yet because there are false positive cases. A PSA gives false positive cases. Why? There are other reasons which elevates the PSA level also, like urinary tract infection or ejaculation, or even exercise increases the PSA level. So if When the doctor finds out that the PSA level is high, then he or she does a DRE examination. So what is DRE? DRE is digital rectal examination. So doctor puts their finger through the rectum of the patient, more specifically through the butthole of the patient, and then try to feel the prostate. Okay, so prostate is normally a soft organ, but when there is cancer, it forms some nodules. So doctor can feel it, and then doctor can understand, yes, this patient is suffering from prostate cancer. After this step, doctors suggest to do a needle biopsy. Needle biopsy is again putting a needle through the rectum, which must be very uncomfortable, and then through that needle take a part of the prostate, and then pathologists do a histological assay to suggest whether really this patient has the prostate cancer or not, and what stage the cancer is in now. Okay, and what are the treatments for prostate cancer? Before telling you this thing, I need to talk about the landmark discoveries that was made in 1941. In 1941, Huggins and Hodge first discovered that androgen receptor signaling is play a vital role in prostate cancer progression. How? Or what is androgen receptor? Androgen receptor are nuclear hormone receptor. These normally a protein that resides in the cytoplasm, okay, and these are normally bound by HSP, heat shock proteins, okay, and when bound by HSP, these are inactive. Testicles or testes, these secrete androgen, or more specifically testosterone. By the body enzyme 5-alpha reductase, that testosterone is converted to dihydrotestosterone, which is the active form. This dihydrotestosterone has more affinity to AR than HSP. Then dihydrotestosterone removes HSP and binds to AR. Then that AR translocates to nucleus, and in the nucleus it binds to the specific gene promoter and give rise to those prostate specific genes which promotes the prostate cancer cell proliferation. So they suggested that if you inhibit this signaling mechanism, prostate cancer can be treated. Okay, so what are the treatments? First, surgical removal of the prostate gland, or the radiation therapy. When it is organ confined, you can radiate to kill the prostate or to kill the prostate tissue, or surgical castration, surgically removal the testis. As I said, testis produces testosterone or androgen, which is the key to prostate cancer progression. So if you reduces testis, the prostate the prostate tumor should regress. Okay, or chemical castration, which is the most employed, majority of the cases, patients are treated by chemical castration, okay, using anti-androgen. So how anti-androgen works? Anti-androgen actually binds to this AR more tightly than this dihydrotestosterone. When it is bound to AR cannot translocate to nucleus. So it cannot start the transcription of those pro-proliferative genes. So the tumor shrinks. These are the important information which is needed to understand my presentation actually. Okay. So what happens? But androgen deprivation therapy. So you understand androgen deprivation by chemical castration using an anti-androgen drug works at the beginning. But after 2 or 3 years of time, the tumor relapses. You can see the androgen deprivation was given using chemical castration, and the tumor volume, the tumor volume actually decreases, but then the tumor again relapses. And there is a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? This exactly happens with these cancer cell lines. When they relapse with more aggressive phenotype. Now they become metastatic and they metastasize to other organs of the body. Okay, so what is our contribution in this field? Okay, in 2019 January, during my third year, I published as a second author our first observation that this TLK, the short form of tussle-like kinase, it actually promotes prostate cancer. How? It actually inhibits the prostate cancer apoptosis. So what is apoptosis? Apoptosis is programmed cell death. So when you use several dose chemotherapy or anti-androgen drugs, these prostate cancer cells accumulate DNA damage. So when there are sufficient DNA damage, the cell cannot proliferate anymore. Okay, so the cell die. It is called programmed cell death, apoptosis. But TLK is actually inhibit that apoptosis mechanism and promotes the survival of the prostate cancer cells. So we identified that TLK could be a TLK is a cancer, TLK promotes prostate cancer tumorigenesis. So we need to inhibit TLK. Okay, so then we understood only inhibiting prostate cancer cell death may not be able to promote this metastatic process and this robust relapse of prostate cancer. There should be some other mechanism. So last year in 2020 December, we published another paper. We showed that TLK not only inhibits prostate cancer cell death, it also activates some oncogenes. Which is the oncogene? This is YAP. It is full form is yes associated protein. This oncogene, TLK, stabilizes this oncogene, and then when this oncogene is stabilized in the cell, it can bind to its promoter region and then starts the transcription of pro-proliferative gene. So the prostate cancer relapses again. But still, we were not satisfied. We were thinking like there might be some other mechanisms how TLK helps in the prostate cancer metastasis. So I would like to introduce a little bit about this TLK. TLK, the full form is tussle-like kinase. So what is this? It was first identified in a plant and found that it is responsible for the floral development. In the vertebrates, in human, there are two homologs, I can say like two relatives of TLK, that is TLK1 and TLK2.
MTS?
Yes.
Have we started anything new at this point as far as secretive stuff and being scooped?
Oh, no, these are still the background information.
Thank you. Just want to make
sure. These are still the background information that is I'm giving.
Just let me know when you get to the part you don't want.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. You're doing great.
No problem. Okay, so I can say that in vertebrates, in human, there are two brothers of TLK. Two relatives, two cousins of TLK, that is TLK1 and TLK2. Recently, TLK2 has been found to promote breast cancer cell line and glioblastoma. Glioblastoma is in the glial cells in the brain. That TLK2 promotes the metastasis of breast cancer cells and the glioblastoma cells. Since TLK2 and TLK1 are very much closely related and they share 94% homology in their kinase domain. Okay, I meant to say, overall there are 89% similarity in these two homologs. So we hypothesize that maybe TLK1 also is implicated in metastasis. And since we are interested in prostate cancer, so we wanted to see if TLK1 promotes metastasis in prostate cancer or not. So now I think I need to tell you a little bit about prostate cancer metastasis, or the overall process of metastasis. So the picture you are seeing, it is not specific for prostate cancer. This is a common mechanism of all types of cancer metastasis. Well, what happens? So let's see. Okay, so when the tumor grows sufficiently larger, okay, it breaks this basement membrane. Okay, when it breaks the basement membrane, it's become motile. Okay, you can see some of the tumor cells, these are kind of like round shaped, but when the cells become motile, it becomes spindle shaped. Okay, it enters into the stroma, and stroma is consist of stromal cells, and also the stromal cells secrete lots of extracellular matrices, which are like collagen fibers. So these motile cells cannot penetrate through these collagen fibers unless they degrade these collagen fibers, which is called proteolytic degradation. Okay, so first the cancer cells invade the basement membrane, also invade this ECM, then it enters into the blood circulation through a mechanism called intravasation. Okay, in the blood circulation, it also have mechanism to escape immune surveillance, and then when it finds a suitable location to colonize, it produces, it undergoes extravasation. That means it's getting out of the blood circulation, and then it colonizes to the organs like lung, bone, and liver. Okay, in prostate cancer, these are the preferable sites of colonization. So prostate cancer metastasizes to these organs, and another one, which is lymph node, most frequently. Okay, so what are the main processes to promote this metastasis? One is motility, another is invasion. And to promote the motility and invasion, how does the cell promotes motility and invasion? There are several pro-motility factors responsible, okay, and coordination of multiple signaling pathways, which is promoted by those pro-motility factors. Then specific gene expression, cytoskeletal changes. Cytoskeletal changes means like the cell has its cytoskeleton, which is composed of mainly actin. Actin needs to be changed for the cells to be motile. As I said, like a round shaped cells becomes a spindly shaped. How? The actin cytoskeleton needs to be changed. Okay, and finally the remodeling of surrounding extracellular matrices. This is the extracellular matrix, these yellow things. Okay, it needs to be remodeled. So by this way, not only prostate cancer, all different types of cancer actually metastasizes to other organs. Multiple factors play role behind this metastasis. So this is one of the meeting I attended, and I published my abstract, like it is like a conference paper. So this was in ASBMB. So ASBMB is American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. It is a very big international meeting for the biochemist. And then this is the cancer research. This meeting is called AACR, American Association for Cancer Research. This is another very big meeting, international meeting. So I published this story just as an abstract in those two meetings, and I am now ready to publish my story in a good journal. Now currently I am preparing my manuscript. Hopefully I will be able to submit it soon. So how is PhD life at LSU HSC? So it is not a bed of roses. It is full of thorns, right? But only 3P actually, I think 3P make me stick to my PhD program. What are these? The first, the passion, proactiveness, and patience. I will add two more things, which is like commitment. PhD is a big commitment, 5 to 6 years of commitment. And then the most important thing, which I'll say, finding fun in doing research and reading articles. If you don't find it fun doing research, if it doesn't make you excited to do research, to get to know new things, and then if that research doesn't work, go back to the articles, read how other people did it, then it will be difficult to get success in PhD. Okay, actually, if you have passion, commitment, then maybe you will find fun in doing research. For me, like, if doing research is not making me happy, what will happen? It will make me stressed. And if I am stressed, then I lose my passion and also commitment. Okay, so whether, I mean, it is very important whether you like to do research or not. If you don't think that you 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 don't like to do research or like to know new things or like to read articles, then maybe PhD is not for you. I'm not demoralizing you, but I'm just telling that what are the key things required to be a good PhD student. Okay, another thing is proactiveness. Your mentor will not every time tell you to do things, do this, do that, test that, do that experiment, do this experiment. You need to come up with new ideas, new experiment ideas, and you will, in the morning, you will knock your professor's office door and discuss your new idea, and if he or she approves, or if he or she thinks like, yes, um, your idea is logical, then you will do, I mean, he or she will suggest you to do it, and then you will do it. I meant to say the professor will not always tell you that, hey, do this, do that. It is you who should read papers, articles, and get new ideas, and then execute those ideas by doing experiments. For me, nothing can be more beautiful or noble than creating new knowledge. What a teacher does, a teacher teaches his students, impart the knowledge. What a scientist does, a scientist creates new knowledge. That is the most fascinating thing for me. I am here to create new knowledge. Nothing can be more beautiful than that. At LSU HSC, I had several achievements, I would say. Like, I received the first place poster award in 2018. It is pretty competitive. I mean, to secure an award like this, we have like 890 graduate students. All of them put their posters in it, and the judges like my poster and gave me the first place. It was really, I mean, really prestigious for me. And then in March 2020, I received a travel award to attend and present a poster at ASBMB. So in the travel award, they actually pay you to attend the conference. But I was also unfortunate in this regard. When this conference was in April, I got the award in 2020, but then COVID started and the conference was cancelled. But still, I have the recognition, right? The judges liked my abstract, and that's why it was just based on the merit of the abstract of my research. They gave the, and also they looked at my mini essay that I needed to write and also my CV. They gave me the award based on those credentials. Okay. But I could not avail that, but I still have the email and everything that congratulations. So I still use it in my CV that I actually got it, but then COVID started and I could not go to the conference. It is not my fault. And then in November 2020, like last November, I received a very competitive pre-doctoral fellowship award from the Feist-Weiler Cancer Center. So it is our intramural cancer center. Every year they give 1 or 2 students this fellowship. So this fellowship covers my salary with a slight raise. Okay, so the good thing is my mentor doesn't need to pay me salary, but he promised me that he won't be stingy. He will spend those money for the purchase of my reagents. I mean, for my research. So it is also, I mean, it is helpful for the lab also, and also it is very good for my CV. So now, how studying at WIU helped me to ace in my PhD career. Okay, so I don't take a lot of pictures. I don't have a very photogenic face, but I found some pictures here and there in my phone, and I put it in this slide. So at WIU, I got my first hands-on research experience, more specifically in Dr. Musser's lab. Okay, in Dr. Musser's lab, I learned RNA extraction, cDNA synthesis, qPCR, and microarray. Those knowledge I still use in my PhD to do research. Here I need to do qPCR. I'm using those knowledge that I acquired in Dr. Musser's lab to do these experiments. You will be surprised to know Dr. Musser gave me a template to analyze qPCR data. That template I'm still using to analyze my this prostate cancer data, right? And then the coursework that this Dr. Musser's animal-plant interaction coursework, plant-animal interaction course. Then we had a biostat course, Dr. Romano taught us, and then we had I think graduate level course, which is called 502. It was like a molecular mechanism, techniques in molecular biology. Those courses were extremely helpful for me. Those courses gave me the basic knowledge of a specific technique. Yeah, and then studying at WIU helped me to improve my presentation and communication skill. Okay, really, I mean, at WIU I presented posters several times. I also got a first place research poster award from WIU. You can see I'm presenting my research in here. I think it was in departmental research day, and this was my graduation day with my wife. So I think WIU helped me a lot to ace in my PhD. The coursework, the research experience, all helped to do well in this PhD. And obviously, the recommendation letters, right? Dr. Musser gave me a very nice recommendation letter that was much appreciated by the admission committee of this school, LSU HSC, and they recruited me. So I'm very much in debt to WIU. So in March 2017, I received a first place award in prostate presentation, which I told you before. I also received a graduate student professional and developmental fund. It was like very meager amount of money, like $450, but still, it was a feat, right? And then I also received a Bridge to Graduate School award for getting a PhD position in this school. And also, apart from that, I got like Gold Award, Purple Award from WIU. And one thing I forgot to mention, I was a TA there also. WIU gave me my first teaching experience. Okay, now I can proudly mention it in my CV because of WIU. I was TA for a couple of years at WIU. I taught human anatomy and physiology, then microbiology, and also one semester botany I taught. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. This was my thesis at WIU in Dr. Maser's lab. Okay, so the title of my thesis was Caterpillar Herbivory and Arbuscular Mycorrhizal Symbiosis on Tomato Plant Gene Expression. I hope doing cancer research, my knowledge did not shrink on my thesis. So what I did in here, I tested tomato plants gene expression when they are exposed to both caterpillar feeding and this beneficial arbuscular mycorrhizal symbiosis. So arbuscular mycorrhiza, this microscopic fungi, it actually protects, it gives the plant nutritional benefit and also like protects the plant from the pest. So I found that uh, caterpillar damaged the plants more which didn't have this fungus. But with fungus, caterpillar ate it less. And then I also measured the gene expression by qPCR technique. Here are just few to mention. I actually measured like 14 or 15. So some of the defense related genes and anti-nutritive genes of tomato plants. So I found that the presence of that fungus in the plant modulates the tomato plant gene expression. Sometimes it upregulates, sometimes it downregulates. I can find it, I can see it in here, glutathione transferase. So you know that this is a antioxidant. Glutathione S transferase protect the cells from oxidation. Okay, and oxidation is one of the major reasons of cancer progression. Okay, so you can see the plants with this fungi actually upregulates this GST gene. Okay, so with this I will finish my presentation today. Obviously I need to acknowledge some people. I need to acknowledge my current mentor, Dr. Arrigo Di Benedetti. He's an awesome person. He's such a wonderful mentor. I am never intimidated by him. No matter how much weird ideas I share with him, he never belittled me. He was always like supporting and encouraging. Okay, he will not say that, hey, stupid idea, go get out of my office. He will never tell me this thing. So he is an amazing person, and I am lucky to have him as my mentor. I hope with his knowledge, wisdom, and my proactiveness, we will be able to publish some more papers, good papers, which will really have some clinical implications to treat those metastatic cancer patients. Yeah, and then my committee members and all the faculties of biochemistry department for their tremendous support, my lab members for their support, all the graduate students and postdocs of the department, and lastly, the Feistweiler Cancer Center for providing me the fellowship, providing me my salary. And yeah, that's it. I think I'm done with my presentation today, and I'd like to take any questions if you have.
Thanks, MTS. Would you be willing to stop sharing the screen so we can see everybody on the presentation? So you might have a surprise visitor if you look at the lower corner.
Oh, yeah, I can see Ammar, right? Hey, Ammar, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you, Imtiaz?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Yeah,
Love the speech. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
So Amar was a former grad student in my lab also, who did a lot of research as well. And he's out in Iraq right now, actually. Does anybody have any questions right now? I know Lindsay had some experience with cancer research, or just talking about what it's like to be in a PhD program too. That may be the way to go as well. But he talked about, he might tell you a little bit about what it's like to be trying not to get scooped as a researcher or things of that nature as well too.
Yeah, I have big story to share regarding this. Okay, I will share a story. I will not tell a name. This scooping things happened within that department also. I'm not telling which department. Within a department, I know about that department, and I know that this thing is so serious in biomedical science research. People need some ideas, good ideas. And if, let's say when I'm presenting it, like I'm presenting it in a seminar, in a conference, we are always worried why people takes picture, and maybe they have more people in the lab. They can finish work faster than me. They will get an idea, okay, this protein interacts with that protein and then it phosphorylates on that site. So before I do the mutation and try to see the functional relevance of those phosphorylation, they will do it faster than me because they have more people in the lab, and they will get some good result and publish it before me. But I was the one who first identified this novel interaction, right? So I mean, nobody wants to be in that situation.
I can actually add something like that too, MTS. When I was a PhD student at University of Arkansas, and you guys know one of my big claims to fame was trying to inhibit caterpillar spit, either through the surgery or through the cauterization. And so here I am, a PhD student, invented that technique. And so I show another person in the plant pathology department, I was in the entomology department, a postdoc, how to do that technique. And all of a sudden, she's using that technique all the time and trying to get published. While I'm a PhD student, this was my claim to fame as a PhD student, to come up with these techniques. And so it scared the heebie-jeebies out of me, because here she was about to publish, or wanted to publish, on some stuff that was going to be part of a big article or manuscript for me. So it was very scary. And so how it all ended up happening is, of course, I talked to my advisor, Gary Felton, and he talked to that advisor over there in plant pathology. Gary Felton was a bigger name. Ken Korth was probably happy to try to make smooth things out. And so I ended up being an author on her publication. But she was happy to go publish it and not give me much credit. In fact, she took that technique and published several more papers in her lab in Canada after she got accepted as an assistant professor. So she's been using the technique I invented for years and never made a big deal about, of course, how it came about. She always thought of herself as better than me or something like that. That was the attitude she had. But anyway, to make a long story short, that was how that was resolved. But it does make you think. You got to be a little bit careful on how you share things, especially when I'm just thinking, I'm happy to teach you something that is cool. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is going to be a collaboration, because I have a very collaborative share my publications with everybody kind of attitude. But obviously, when you share something with somebody, they might not have that attitude.
Right.
So anyway, that is true. You can be scooped and so forth. So that's an issue.
I'm telling you one thing, Dr. Maser, it happens in biomedical science all the time. And this is scooping. One person is publishing faster than the other person because why? They had a bigger lab, more people in the lab, and more resources, maybe big school, but they are getting ideas from like a small lab like me. Okay, they got, okay, this is a novel thing, we will try it. And because I'm working alone in my project, in this prostate cancer metastatic prostate, my lab member, she works on DNA damage repair, completely a different thing. So in 1 year of period, if I finish this much, they will finish much faster, and then they will publish it before me. They can obviously work. Does that mean that they cannot work what I am working in? No, they can. But if it is my idea, if it is my novel findings, I want to get it published first, get recognized, and then they can take the idea from my paper, and then they can cite my paper and move forward. No problem with that.
Yeah,
and I showed one slide where I suggested that one phosphorylation was picked up by a big company, and then they generated an antibody. Although it didn't harm us, it actually helped us because we didn't have to make the antibody by spending $5,000 of money. But still, that means people are reading our work, even if it is an abstract conference paper.
Oh, I was going to say, actually, we had a person take my ideas. When I say my ideas, of course, me and my advisor and stuff, our ideas about how glucose oxidase suppresses nicotine in tobacco plants. There's a guy that took that idea and patented it to make low nicotine tobacco for low nicotine cigarettes or something. So there's a patent out there that somebody made based on our ideas.
Our ideas, right? You don't want that.
I don't think they made any money, but they made a patent on it. Even though technically my advisor made a patent on the actual caterpillar glucose oxidase salivary enzyme. Not that it's made any money for anybody, but obviously he'd never be interested in working with the formal cigarette or tobacco industry. But the point is, somebody else took a patent. There was a high-profile paper, like in Nature, that we published, and so that's why it stood out so much. But again, it is a scary thing to think about being scooped, particularly when you're at the beginning of your science career and you're hoping to get enough publications and things that'll help you to get grants and ultimately get a job. So, but even I've kind of been, I won't say scooped, but we did this cannibalism thing on caterpillars, and we knew that it was a pretty big idea, but I didn't work on it fast enough or hard enough, and it ended up another lab published on cannibalism and got into Nature. So we had a Nature idea that Rajiv, who's one of my grad students that is now at Purdue, he did for his research, and another guy, Linus Gogg, had done. But the point is we didn't put the energy in, or we would have potentially had a high-profile article like those people did. But it is a different thing when you're in a small school, small lab, and stuff like that.
All right.
I'm hoping some people could generate some questions or ask some things about whether it's like to be a grad student or anything about their research. But grad student might be the more appropriate point before we wrap up for tonight. I know Dixon's one of my new grad students. Okay, Morgan.
What encouraged you to continue your education from your master's to your PhD? Like, what was your motivation for that? How do you keep yourself motivated in a PhD program and staying through your education through all those consistent years?
Well, that is a very good question. I think my first motivation was like I wanted to be in academia. One day I I wanted to be a professor, a faculty. So for that thing, I need to have a PhD, right? So that's why I pursue a PhD position after my master's. And then what keeps me motivated in my PhD? PhD is a 24/7 hour profession. I'm telling you. Most of the thinking I do regarding my research or a failed experiment is actually in my bathroom. Honestly, I think like, why today I spend entire week, but I didn't get the expected result. Why is that? What can be modified to get the expected result? Okay, those are the things that are really frustrating and is stressful. But then the motivation comes like when I get some appreciation from my boss, when those small achievements like getting an award, or I need to publish something, I have this wonderful data, I just need 2 more figures to publish a paper. Okay, having my work, people will read my work, and then sometimes people email me that, hey, we found your publication, it was very interesting, and then can you please help me further with this? Like, they need a little information, they needed an antibody, they needed a cell line. That makes me feel important. That, what should I say, like, yeah, and my works are getting, when I get citation every day in the morning when I wake up, I check my Google Scholar profile. And when I see a new citation, like, people are liking my research. That's why they are citing me.
Yeah, citations are key for standing out. The other thing I always looked at is what jobs were available all the time and what it would take.
Right. And the motivation, another thing is, what motivates me, like, when I started PhD, I knew I need to get a doctor thing in front of my name. Actually, so whatever happens, I'm going to stick to it. And I will not stop until I finish my PhD. That is how I motivate myself. And sometimes I have my wife, when I feel very low, she supports me. When she is also a PhD student. So when she feels very low, stressed, I support her. And then we have some fun activities going on in the school also. Like, Louisiana is a very good place if you like warm weather, if you like crawfish, if you like gumbo, if you like Cajun cuisine, then Louisiana is a pretty good place to have PhD, I guess.
I have to admit, doing a PhD was fantastic too. I liked my master's degree, and I could have probably been fine. I think if you want to do a master's degree, that is excellent, and then you could take on and do a technician or become a lab manager, and have a very close relationship with a PI, a primary investigator at an academic place, or you can go the industrial route, like the few previous students like Jeff Nolan and Jason Tudor. So there are benefits to going from masters into those situations. But again, if you're wanting a PhD, it's another almost 4 or 5 years or more after his master's degree. And so you're usually going that route as if you want to try to be a PI. That doesn't mean you couldn't end up being a research technician still, but those are some things. But I really loved my PhD program. Again, it's not for everybody, but I got to go to a lot of places in the country as presenting research, getting research awards, hobnobbing with, and again, that's usually gets to the latter part. At the beginning, it can be pretty rough when you're trying to at least get yourself established. But if you do, you can stand out pretty well. But the other thing is, you might end up having to do a postdoc afterwards. you're not going to necessarily just jump into an academic job. Even a teaching job, you're going to have all the teaching credentials and prove your research nowadays. And so sometimes it can be a little stressful to be going into a postdoc, which is kind of like another training program. And then you start looking for your jobs as you're doing your research as a postdoc. So it can be a very long haul if you want to end up being a professor, particularly at a research one. I sometimes wonder if I should try to stick it out a little longer for a research one, but I've had a reasonably successful career. It was enough research to mostly make me happy here and get paid reasonably well. But again, a lot of, it just depends on what type of university. You can end up teaching nonstop and never get to really do much research. And initially, some people are thinking it's cool to get a PhD, be called doctor, and they think I can teach someday. And then you realize a PhD is really about doing research. You're really being trained to be a researcher. I don't know if you want to add to that, Imtiaz, as somebody that's currently involved or anybody else.
I have a question, and first of all, I would like to say thank you,
Thank you.
Khalil. That is my tell name. You're my namesake. My name is Khalil. So first of all, I would like to appreciate you for your time and for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Also, I would like to say thank you to my professor, Professor Musa, for giving us this opportunity to listen to a professional like you. So one thing I would like to say is that right now I'm kind of having a difficult moment in my graduate lifestyle. Sometimes I do say it and think if I'm even good enough to continue with my program, because sometimes it's difficult. We have so many challenges we face in WIU right now. And as an international student, sometimes, it gets very, very frustrating, and you just keep asking yourself questions like, wow, am I good enough? Can I continue with this program? You ask yourself so many questions, but when we listen to successful people like you, it gives us the motivation and inspiration we need to keep pushing, and we just have to believe that we are going to push through and be like you one day. So concerning the PhD, sometimes I have my friends that I talk to with the what are the possible chances of we proceeding with PhD and all that. So with all you have talked about today, do you feel like you're kind of scaring us to go into PhD? Or because right now I feel scared, like, wow, can I do this? Can I do this? So what is the kind of inspiration or motivation you are going to give me not to be scared and go ahead and believe I can do it?
Yeah, thank you for your thank you that you liked my presentation, and I really appreciate it. And, one thing that I told you, if you find fun in doing research, then I will suggest you to go for PhD, because PhD is all about, half of the PhD is doing research and another half is reading. Okay, but if you find it boring to read articles, then maybe PhD will not be suitable for you. If you find boring or stressful to troubleshoot a failed experiment, then maybe PhD will not be the best choice. But if you feel like you like pipetting, PhD is all about pipetting. If you like pipetting, then yeah, PhD is for you. And I told you, like, do what you like, do what you have, what you do in what you find fun. So I think my fun is finding new things. When I mix two new things and find a different outcome, that excites me. That's what I'm telling you, that when I add this specific drug in my cell line and this cell lines behaves differently, although if it is not the expected way that I thought of, but this gives me a new direction to dig into. So, I mean, I get fun in doing research. That's why I'm in PhD, and that is my motivation. Actually, at times it becomes stressful also, and then we hang around. We visit friends and do some fun activities. I do some traveling also. By that way, I reduce my stress. But you need to have determination and commitment to do PhD. Because PhD is a big commitment. I'm telling you this again and repeating this again and again. It is a 5 to 6 years of commitment. 5 to 6 years you need to read and do research. And if you think like you will go for a postdoc for a industry job, I think PhD is not necessary. But if your career goal is different, like as I told you, I want to be a faculty. I want to have a lab of my own lab, where I will do independent research. I will not have any boss upon me. I will not get instruction order from my boss. I will do my own research. I will supervise some students. Then that's why I chose PhD. That's why I want to be in this profession. And
right. It is a big sacrifice though, because as you know, it's going to be to get to that point, and you're doing great, but getting to that point is amazing sacrifice. In some ways, I've told students that have wanted to go to medical school, and they say, well, I'll do a PhD as a backup or something. It ain't that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm yeah, don't think like, oh, doing PhD as a backup. No, it won't.
Yeah, you won't make it.
You won't make it. Then.
In fact, the bottleneck is you might get into a PhD program a little easier than a medical school, depending again on the lab, or it might not. But the bottleneck is afterwards. Getting a decent job is really challenging. Now, I don't know if you'd ever consider industry, or not, if you thought about those kind of things. But I know you sound like you're more interested in having complete say on your research activities, which is why you would stay in academia. Granted, you'll have to get grant money to make that all happen.
I was actually come to that point, right? So the only problem staying in academia is like, first, the remuneration is very less, right? You will earn less, very less, but you will.
Well, especially at the beginning. I mean, I think once you stayed in long enough and you become a hotshot, then you might be okay making 6 figures. But before that, you may, and especially if you go to a modest university, you may start off quite a bit less. While if you went into industry, you might get pretty close to 6 figures.
Yeah, and another problem is like this biomedical field is getting saturated. Okay, so it is very difficult to get fund. And if you don't have money, you cannot do research. In all of the big institutions, the professors get money. I mean, professors get salary from their own grant. The school doesn't pay them. If you don't have grant, that means you don't have salary. They will kick you out. I can tell you some big schools like Mount Sinai, Albert Einstein in New York, then all the other big schools. Then here we have in Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center, then University of Texas at Southwestern. These are all big schools. So in those places, it is very competitive. So will you be able to, I mean, I also ask myself all the time, will you be able to write grants day after night, 7 days a week, because it is every cycle. You know that in biomedical research, our funding source is NIH and Department of Defense. Okay, so NIH has 3 cycles each year where you can submit a grant. Okay, so every cycle you may need to submit 3 or 4 grant. Maybe one of them will be funded. Okay, so did I make you understand, Dr. Nasser, what I'm trying to say? It is so difficult to get fund, and if you don't have fund, then you lose your salary. So this is the situation. This institution, like I talked to my boss a little, the situation of this institution is little better. Like maybe the bosses, my mentor's salary come 70% from his grant and 30% from the school. But he told me that some big school is 100% your salary will come from the grant. Mm-hmm. And it is very difficult to get grants nowadays.
So not to interrupt you, Imtiaz, but so that's something you might want to think about is if you enjoy teaching enough, it may be better to try to get into a decent comprehensive university, what Western used to be more like, in my opinion, can be again. And you could be somebody like Dr. Sonagard, where you have a lot of students. You might not be able to get those big grants, but you might just be able to do enough to do some research. It won't be that high. It can be high profile, but it won't be as prolific. So there is something to be said about that. So even in my own thoughts, let's imagine top universities, that's like heaven. And if you remember the Bible, I decided it was better to come to Western and forgive me for saying this, but I thought it was better to reign in hell, a small university, a small pond as a bigger fish, than try to get into heaven in these big universities and maybe be a postdoc for another 5-6 years. This, again, pushing off in a sense when life happens. I mean, the fact that I have a child, I have children that are, 17 and 14 and 9 as a 50-year-old should tell you something.
Right.
And a lot of people my age are grandparents already. So, but again, I've had a great career at a school like Western, particularly when things were going really good. And I can do as much research as I want ultimately. It doesn't cost as much as the research you do. And when you do land a big grant, you can usually make it go a lot further. The only thing I was also going to mention, Imtiaz, that I think you kind of hit on, is sometimes that cool field like neuroscience or cancer research ends up becoming saturated with lots of really smart people. And the competition can get incredibly, so it's like a competition. Imtiaz is smart, he's doing great research, but he's competing against other smart people that are doing great research. So maybe sometimes choosing a field like caterpillar spit, where you can kind of be a standout because the people that do it are a lot fewer, is something to consider. Or picking a career that doesn't seem that exciting. Like I was telling people, if you studied stored grain pests, which is like corn and silos, that's might sound really boring. But when that job comes up, and you could probably end up in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, you could probably end up in a big land grant university because it's just not going to attract as many people. So when that career comes up, and yet those jobs are really important because we need to eat, right? So
right.
It doesn't mean that it's competitive, but at least you should think about that. So there's lots of ways to become a molecular biologist without necessarily being a cancer researcher, for instance. And then you can track back and, I could be helping out with some cancer research in small senses if I really wanted to. But again, that's because everybody thinks, oh, that's a sexy field. And again, using a euphemism, right? But it is really cool what you're doing. I'm just saying, but there's a lot of great people in your field. But there's going to be a lot more jobs probably too in these other areas or industry. But again, if you understand what I'm saying, I don't want to add to it, or if everybody kind of gets what I'm trying to say.
I understand. Yeah, that's true.
I have a question kind of for the both of you. Do you ever look at your field and look at what other people are doing and think, God, I'm bored of caterpillar spit, or I am bored of prostate cancer. I want to go see what people are doing and I want to look at some neurons, or I want to go, I don't know, look at mycorrhizal. And how do you deal with like being pigeonholed?
Dr. Nasser, you go first.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know obviously with the MTS, he's got, and I should answer for him, but he's got this excitement of trying to get graduated. But for myself, you're right. I mean, I've been doing caterpillar spit, but I have done a lot of other things where we looked at viruses on caterpillars or looked at viruses on plants. We never got into this fungi thing until MTS. And then we started looking at fruits. So yeah, we do kind of have to deal with caterpillars. The one thing I can say at a school like mine, or ours, if all of a sudden I wanted to start studying behavior of dolphins, I could probably talk to somebody up at this shed aquarium and befriend them and hang out and probably be able to do it without, again, I'll never be a top dolphin researcher, but I could theoretically move because nobody really cares what I do here, right? Or even if I do it for the most part. And now that I'm full professor and all that stuff. But you're right. You can, once you get down a serious track like MTS, he could probably switch gears in a postdoc and do something that's more neuroscience or something. But that's where you can kind of shift gears a little bit. In fact, for my master's degree, I did fish behavior, and I could easily jump into something, not easily, but in quotes, easily. So I have the ability at this type of school to do something like that. It would still be hard. I mean, you're not going to become a chimpanzee researcher very easily, but I could probably go to a zoo and start recording results and talking to people something like that, and do things like that. So there's a maximum flexibility exists at Western, particularly after you're a full professor. But obviously I'd rather be pigeonholed because I'm probably always going to be known as, I can go to a meeting and be known for this in my world. Like I showed you Mae Berenbaum, who's in the National Academy of Sciences. She knows who I am. I mean, I might not be considered famous to her, but she at least knows who I am. So sometimes it's better to get that name recognition in a certain field.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Dr. Nasser, especially that last part that you said. So, I mean, do I feel bored? To answer the question. You know that I did my undergrad in zoology. Then I did my master's in parasitology. I was not getting that satisfaction of doing research. What I get in doing cancer research. Cancer field is fascinating. We need a cure. We need to... I work in a hospital, right? So I see patients who have stage 4 prostate cancer. I know, I saw their sufferings. And after seeing that, I mean, I felt like I will never be bored being in cancer field to find a cure, to find a palliative treatment which will reduces the pain of those patients. If not a cure may be not possible for cancer, but a palliative treatment which will increase the survival of the patients, to give the patients 4 years, 5 years more lifespan. I'll go for it. So I like cancer research. I don't think I'll be ever bored of it. And the thing is, yes, do I get stressed sometimes? Yes, I do. And that is due to the pressure from the pressure, like academic pressure, which I meant. And sometimes I want to tell one thing, like peer pressure is also important. So like, let's say 4 of us who entered the department at the same time, 3 of them is going very nice places for their postdoc, but if I cannot, I mean, it will really upset me. right? It is called the peer pressure. If they are doing really well, but I am not, that sometimes upset me. I know that I should not compare myself with others, but competition, inherent competition within the department, it is always there. So, and then, so do you think I answered my question, Dr. Maser? I meant to say, I meant to say, like, cancer field is getting saturated, but cancer field needs some smart people to generate to discover some new therapies which will be really effective in the treatment of patients. Okay, every family has a cancer survivor or cancer victim, right, Dr. Maser? What do you say?
Yeah, I'm a cancer survivor, and unfortunately, my sister and mom weren't. But so there is a cure for cancer. In my case, it was chemo.
Okay, so I mean, we can discuss. I mean, I can discuss an hour more regarding chemo. So as I showed, chemo also in prostate cancer, chemo doesn't help.
Yeah, that's right. So some chemo doesn't work for certain cancers, right?
Yeah, so in prostate cancer so far, it doesn't have any cure. Okay, so in the future, what I want to do in my postdoc, maybe from prostate cancer, maybe to some other cancers, I won't mind that. But I'm happy. I get mental satisfaction when I do cancer research.
The only other caveat, though, that's kind of interesting is here you are becoming this researcher, but you're also got these MDs that are kind of come in and probably do a little bit of a smaller project than you, and they're going to make a shitload more money than you initially, being a cancer researcher, medical doctor.
Okay, good point, Dr. Maser. As you said, yes, in our field, those who have MD, PhD, you mean that, right? MD, PhD. Yeah, they are the most respected person, and so in our field, getting grant is everything. If you don't have grant, you don't have salary, you don't have publication, you cannot do research. That means it's something called money begets money, right? When you have money, you will hire more people, you will get data, you will publish it. That will make you more prominent to other people, like more visible to other people. Then you will submit other grant. So those grant reviewers, they are also scientists, right? They know that this guy is doing very well, publishing a lot, prolific. Okay, then they will give you more grants, and with that money you will do better research, again publishing, and money begets money, simply. Okay, so in this grantmanship, the MD, PhD, PIs, they get, their grants get more fun. Their grants are funded better than just a PhD, PI, I guess.
Well, there might be just MD PIs too, right?
Yeah, there are. But then they collaborate with PhD people. Like they say that in my grant, I have these PhD people with 10% contribution, 20% contribution, 30% contribution. So the reviewer knows that this person who is proposing this work, they are able to do it.
Yeah, and especially there's an added clinical aspect to it. Do the MD, PhDs do as serious of a research project as you do as a PhD student?
Yes. So in our institution, I told you that it is a medical school, right? Mm-hmm. So here, when a student gets recruited in a MD, PhD program, so the first 2 years they spend in their MD coursework, which is similar like us, just a little, they have some clinical rotations. Okay, or otherwise the coursework, like the interdisciplinary coursework, is the same. And then after spending 2 years in the MD course or MD curriculum, they come to do the PhD. and they also needs to do the same rigorous research work that we are doing. Is the same.
And then you do have MDs that rotate through that didn't get the MD PhD. Is that right? Or do they all? Or I mean, everybody that comes through is pretty hardcore about their research.
I found even in our department also there are several students who joined as a PhD for the PhD program, like as a PhD student, but they couldn't complete. But so then they graduated with a master's degree. But with MD PhD, I didn't see that. Most of the MD PhD students, they are pretty smart. They are very smart.
Well, they must be really motivated.
Yeah, they are enough motivated, right? So,
but getting a PhD is a totally different animal than getting an MD. Obviously, an MD, you get lots of training, but a lot of it's classes. You're graduating with your student, with your class for the most part, and then you go on to do your internships and residencies and stuff like that. While a PhD is so much more open-ended, where you could be, one person is getting done in 4 years, one person is getting done in 5. You don't necessarily have that cluster of all your buddies are taking the exact same test. I mean, you know what I mean, a little bit. I mean,
yeah, I understand. Yeah. I mean, one MD, you mean PhD a little flexible. Like if a student cannot finish it within 5 years, if he or she has grants, like I do, I have my own grant, so he or she can extend it. But in an MD, they need to finish within 5 or 4 years of.
Yeah, but a straight up MD can be done in 4 years, and then residency. True. Making pretty good bang. And it's all as a cluster. You're with your other students. I mean, it's obviously challenging. But I'm just saying with an MD, you're kind of, or with a PhD, you're kind of like, you can be a lone wolf in your lab trying to figure something out. And that can be kind of stressful.
True.
Without any support or help necessarily much, I mean, outside of maybe some general advice.
I totally agree. Just one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing is like MD, there are also challenges like you need to pass that USMLE test, and I don't know a lot about MD, but I think they need to be in the top percentile of USMLE. Then they will get the residency, their desired residency program. Mm-hmm. And from the residency program also they have examinations at the end, like test. After passing that test, they will become fellow. I mean, it is also a long haul.
Sure, but I'm just saying it's at that point it's still a lot like school. I'm just learning these incredible amount of things and taking this test. While here you got to go discover something that's brand new. I'm just saying there's differences where one thing can be stressful because there's PhD students that take 7 years, right? So
right, and another big difference after doing the MD in the residency program, they earn much better than a postdoc. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, they earn much better than a postdoc. Like a PhD student after finishing PhD, if he or she goes to postdoc, he will not earn much, I guess. But in MD, after doing an MD, when somebody starts residency, they earn much better. Yeah.
So, does anybody else have any questions for Imtiaz? What you should do is put your MD initials at the end, just in case.
I wish. Then everything will be like complete, right?
Now, some people do get their PhD and then go on and get the medical school afterwards too.
They do. The thing is, like, so here comes the problem, like with the citizenship, and like I'm also an international student, right? So in MD, it is very difficult to get a scholarship. So like now I'm PhD, I don't need to pay any tuition fee. I have a scholarship. The school pays my tuition fees, right? Moreover, on top of that, the school pays me my salary so that I can survive. Now the cancer center provides me the salary, but in the MD case, I have to pay the tuition fee, and which is pretty high. And international students, we are not allowed to take loans. Otherwise, I thought about that option also. And even if I did that, I would focus on those my plan was to focus on leukemia and pediatric cancer, but unfortunately, maybe not.
I don't know if you can go to a Caribbean medical school and get that.
They are less expensive, yes, I know, but still they are like $150,000. Still, that is also a pretty big amount of money that I need to pay, right?
Sure.
Yeah, most of the students, like here, the native students, they can take bank loans and pay throughout their lifetime, I guess. I don't know a lot about it. Just saying. So that is not possible for me because I'm not a native student.
Anybody else would like to ask questions or discussion points, or you're welcome to leave if you want to, but if you want to stick around for a few more minutes, you're welcome to do that too, unless MTS needs to cruise really quick. I imagine you're taking a lot of his time, but does anybody have any questions?
Can I say something?
Hey, Ammar. Yes.
I just want to thank both of you. Actually, if you, maybe you don't know, and right now here in Baghdad, it is 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And I'm still awake because I know Imtiaz and Dr. Masar students. I know this presentation will be awesome. And it really was a good presentation. And
Thank you.
I really miss both of you and all the activities we were doing in Macomb. And also I want to thank Dr. Masar. He is really my best advisor. And so thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ammar. Yes, thank you for the compliment. Thank you for saying these nice words. Yeah, meant a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mar. Dixon's trying to join the lab, and he's going to be doing some research with me, but he's not had quite the wonderful experience yet. We've been dealing with COVID and personal issues, but we're hoping that Bill start working on his research real quick, like soon.
Thank you, sir. I have a quick question. Thank you, Dr. Musa, for giving us this opportunity, and thank you, Imtiaz. Now, my question thus, if you have a novel idea for a research problem, and how easy it is to collaborate with a biotechnology biotechnological industry or biopharmaceutical industry, how easy it is to collaborate with them to get the research done. Then secondly, looking at a PhD and a postdoc, what is the difference in terms of complexity, in terms of how complex it is? Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Nice question. So I never tried to have a collaboration with any biotechnology companies because lots of rules and regulations are there, I guess. Dr. Masar, can you please help me to say it properly? I meant to say, the school needs to give me permissions, and the school needs to check all. There will be some conditions from the biotechnology companies also, because they are doing actually business, right? They are not non-profit organization, right? They will give some conditions that, okay, your research will be my property. School needs to have their guidelines and everything, so we try to avoid that. Okay, and normally if let's say you are having a collaboration from a biotechnology company, and that biotechnology company is providing you resources to do something, or is biotechnology company is funding you, then in each and every paper you need to mention one section which is called conflict of interest. Okay, you cannot say that we didn't have any conflict of interest publishing this data. Then what is that? I will try to explain like that. That conflict of interest is whether you are taking money from a company, and then if you publish it, you cannot say you didn't have a complete conflict of interest, because maybe you are publishing this specific data because this data favors the purpose of that company. Okay, so this publication wise, there are also some complications. And obviously I told you that this is school regulation, but is also very complex thing, I guess. So we never tried that, but we always do collaboration within department all the time, also interdepartment quite often, and even with some outside school. Okay, so I have collaboration with a German research group. I have collaboration with a with a research group from Norway. So we do collaboration, and research is all about collaborations. The more you will share your knowledge, the more you will get to learn. Okay, and you cannot do research alone. You need other people's expertise. You will need other people's input. Dr. Maser, do you have anything to say? And and what was your second question?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, thank you. My second question is, what is the difference between a PhD and a postdoc in terms of complexity?
Okay, so I again returning back to your previous question. So I have very limited experience to talk about it. That how is it like to collaborate with a biotechnology or pharmaceutical company? I never did it. I know that my boss never did it. Also, some big shot people, like the thing anti-androgen drugs, which I talked about today. Okay, so it was discovered by Charles Sawyer, and he worked in Memorial Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital. They also have a graduate program in New York. Okay, so he must have collaborations with these biotechnology companies also, but we don't have it. Okay, and then your next question is, how is it like? I mean, what is the difference between a
a postdoc research program, and a PhD research program.
Okay,
in terms of complexity or in terms of its content.
Okay, so PhD is still an academic degree. When you are doing a PhD, you are still a student, but postdoc is a professional degree. Okay, you will do postdoc after you get a PhD. Okay, when a postdoc is needed for more to get further experience on a certain field. Okay, and one thing is, so I know I have some I have some friends who work in engineering field, like who is doing PhD. They don't need to get a postdoc, finish a postdoc position to get a faculty. They don't need to do a postdoc to get a faculty position. They can directly apply for a faculty position. But in my field, it is totally impossible, I would say. Okay, after you finish your PhD, then you need to do a good postdoc. Some people do couple of postdoc, and then they apply for a faculty position. Okay, because in the meantime, because nowadays it is becoming so competitive. In PhD, maybe you will publish 5 papers. That 5 papers is not competitive enough with the other candidates. But after PhD, when you will do another 5 years postdoc, you will publish 5 more papers, and the postdoc, they have more expertise, right? And they can devote their full time in research. So in postdoc time, you will be able to publish more papers, you will have better expertise, better knowledge in this field, and then you will be competitive with the other candidates for a faculty position. Dr. Maser, did I answer it properly? What do you say? What's your opinion regarding this?
Yeah, I mean, you're on the right track. So I agree. So a postdoc is a lot more like just a job, and it should pay more. Not always, but should. And it is usually, and it can vary a lot. It can be a postdoctoral fellowship where you have a lot of control over what you do, or a lot more, or you end up working on a grant of a PI that owns the lab, in quotes, and you end up doing a specific job for them. And then usually this is a point where you're working on more publications. You don't have any class requirements, usually, almost never. And it's kind of open-ended. So in my case, I was about the second year, halfway through my second year of a postdoc when I came to Western. Had I not gotten the job at Western, I would have probably had to look for a new postdoc, and at that point, the problem with jobs market is, you look at one job at a time. So I'd had a job offer at Western, but at the same time, I had a potential interview at West Virginia University, and which had been a bigger university, but I couldn't turn down a job offer once it was acceptable enough, because you don't get that many job offers at once. And again, in my field, I'd had a really big publication, and the competition isn't as severe as cancer research. But at the same token, even with a Nature publication, and while Western I thought was a nice school, but I started here particularly, it was still, example of the job market. So that's what I mean by serving in. It's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. That's my reason why I said that statement, because I could have easily served in heaven as a postdoc for one or two more terms, being in these big, beautiful universities, big names, but still be making very little money in comparison to what I was making at Western. So there's pros and cons to all these things, but you had to have that teaching ability. And a lot of people that focus so hard on research maybe aren't the best teachers. Some are, but it's a skill also that you have to prove nowadays, because every job level is pretty competitive. And be honest with you, MTS would have a hard time getting a job at a community college, even though he has these great research credentials, just because he hasn't spent all his time teaching, and they'll wonder why he's applying here. And they'd rather hire somebody that they think, well, we'll just want to teach and do nothing else. So every level is kind of competitive in its own way. So you had to kind of demonstrate those skills, and they would question, so that's my point. So, but a postdoc is, again, usually just a research position. The thing that's great about it is if you become a great postdoc, you might get a lot of respect in your lab, particularly, and maybe across the department if you've been there long enough. But then you also get this kind of, you're not really part of the club feeling. I don't know if you've seen that with postdocs that you've worked with in MTS, or if you have any. How many do you have in your lab?
We had 2, and now we have 1, actually.
So they could be an important go-to person for PhD students. A lot of times they might be treated like they might be treated almost like an assistant professor to the research in that lab.
Oh yeah. In majority lab it happens. Like, let's say those labs where the professor does not communicate or does not have enough time to communicate with the students, so the professor tie the graduate students, or especially the new graduate students, like let's say the first year students, or even sometimes second year students, to a trained or like expert postdoc who has good expertise. So that postdoc actually monitors the work of the student, and also like teaches new techniques to the students. Any troubleshooting, the students go to the postdoc, like this way.
The one group of people that can actually have a lot of power in a lab, because your PI grants that power, is if you have a really long-term technician, and they may not have a PhD, they may have a master's, but as a PhD student, I don't know if you have that, but for you to act uppity to a long-term master student a master's degree person that's a really trusted lab manager would be a little bit of academic suicide to your, if you came in there with an air, well, I'm a PhD student. I don't know if you have do you have a long-term master's technician in your lab that's well trusted by the PI or not?
We don't have it, but several labs in our department has a like dedicated post for as a lab technician and also a lab manager. Normally the lab technician performs the job of a lab manager also. So what does the what do the lab managers do? They normally maintains the lab, they orders reagent, maintains the account balance and everything, those kind of things lab managers do.
So they can become very powerful in that lab if they are a well-trusted person.
They are actually powerful. Nobody wants to mess with lab manager because if you have if you don't get along well with a lab manager, then it's a problematic because every time you need to buy a reagent, you need to tell the lab manager, right? Hey, I need to buy this. Can you please order it for me? Did I make you understand?
Oh yeah. And as a fresh postdoc in University of Arizona, when I walked into a lab of a person that ended up becoming a National Academy of Science winner, Vicki Chandler, in the plant sciences, her lab manager, she would easily throw me out like that as a postdoc to her lab manager who had a master's degree.
It happens. It happens. I also experienced it when I was having the rotation. That in the first year I was having rotation, and I found that maintaining a good relation with lab manager is very important because lab manager is like the right hand of the professor. Lab manager reports everything, who is coming late in the lab, who is talking too much over phone in the lab, who is leaving early in the lab, even those tiny details, lab manager reports to the professor. So
one benefit of getting your master's degree here, depending on your advisor and stuff like that, it can be you get your hand held a lot, particularly if you don't have a grant or something like that. You can get your hand held a lot, but here, there they would be like, "Hey, you ain't doing your work. Get out of here. You can go talk to the department chair, but you're out. I don't give a shit." Right? The PIs would say, "Out of here." Here we try to be okay. We'll try to listen to you a little bit.
Yes, here this is the situation. Actually, true. If your PI doesn't like you, nobody can help you. That is the thing you were saying, right? PI can kick you out anytime from the lab.
And not really care too much because
yes, it happened. It happens. Here it happens.
But you got to be very careful who you pick for your PhD advisor.
True. That is a key. That is one of the keys to be successful in PhD. I would say, mentor matters a lot.
And that's true for master's degrees too. If you don't have a master's advisor that knows that, hey, I want to get you out of here. Obviously, and I think, and Dixon's going through it with me, and Kylie's working on her master's. Finding an advisor that you feel like you have a good rapport with that'll help you get out is the most important thing. But do they have a success? I've always found a way to get students out if they put the effort in. And there's students that don't ever graduate picking the wrong lab. But it's a different environment. I've seen a lot of people go in for a PhD. And the thing about those big name schools is you go in for a PhD, you might leave with a complementary master's. I don't know is that kind of true, MTS?
Complementary masters means they will get both the PhD certificate diploma, also a master's diploma. Did you mean that?
That's one way that happens. So there'll be people that go into a PhD program where they'll get a kind of a complementary master's after they finish the credit hours. And then there's also those that just are not PhD material in quotes, and they're leaving. So they just say, here's your master's degree, go.
This happens. The second scenario happens here. Normally happens there. I told you, we had two students. They are not progressing in their research work. So the PI said, hey, you know what? If you finished your coursework, so get a master's degree, write me a short thesis, like very small thesis, and I think that is a better choice, better that will be better for you.
So you probably did a more thorough master's degree here than maybe somebody from that's getting kind of rejected.
Oh, really? Right. Obviously. Yes. Because, do you really consider they actually entered as a PhD student, but at later point they found that they are not doing well in PhD. That's why they are getting the master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And at Western, I knew that I am doing my master's. I was a full-time master's student. And so these two things are different. Even
do you think you would have struggled a lot more had you not done a master's degree first?
Yes, I firmly believe that, because Western actually gave me a proper preparation. Okay, I know, like when I came from Bangladesh in 2015, I didn't know how the coursework will be. I mean, the course curriculum in United States. So Western helped me to acclimatize myself, to adapt myself with the pressure. And in Western, even I handled more pressure. Why? Because I was a TA. I also had TA responsibilities, right? I had to finish my own courses. I had to do TA-ship, and also I had to work in the lab, right? So Western made me more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I grew up a lot in a master's program too. I would not have been very successful straight in a PhD program.
Right. From undergrad straight to PhD program, I saw several students who are actually struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that because during just 4 years of undergrad, maybe their knowledge, their expertise did not develop that much. But having a master's degree,
and writing the thesis.
Right. Yes. Obviously.
It helps you write the dissertation because what's kind of expected.
Right. Because during during undergrad, maybe you also don't have that much of research experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you start a PhD directly from undergrad, you didn't have any research experience, and now you are exposed to a big field of research. So it will be intimidating at the beginning, I guess. But if a student has already a master's degree, he or she has already some knowledge about doing research.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then they will not be that intimidated by a PhD research, I guess. That is just my opinion. But I also saw students who are doing pretty well, and they came directly from undergrad to PhD. So we have both types of student in here.
I know anybody else have any questions? Again, you don't have to stick around if you want to cruise. I don't want anybody feel, I know it's been a long day for a lot of you. Khalil or Dixon or Taylor.
Okay, I have one more question. If one is looking forward to applying to research laboratories or some industries as a scientist or as research scientist or as laboratory scientist, is a postdoc an added advantage? Having a postdoc, is it an added advantage? Or is postdoc only meant for academician?
Yeah, I also like this question. It is a good question. Yes. So you will do a postdoc. Postdoc track is for those people who want to be in academia. Okay, but if you want to be a research scientist in a pharmaceutical company, a PhD is sufficient, I would say. And if you want to have a like lab technician, research technician job, I would say master's is sufficient.
Oh, thank you.
Postdoc, if you want to pursue if you want to pursue your career in academia. Yeah.
Oh,
I have
thank
seen
you.
people get postdocs and then still go into industry. And again, I don't think industry should ever be considered like a secondary thing. I think you can have an amazing career. And think about a thing like this vaccine for COVID is coming out of industry, even if the basic science was discovered in academia.
That's what I was going to tell you.
Yeah.
The basic knowledge actually came from academia, right? The basic knowledge how this vaccine was generated actually came from academia.
Yep. But again, you have to have that army in industry. And like I said, we had a couple of industry speakers that were from my lab, and they've seemed to have had a really great career. But again, there might be a benefit just going in with a master's degree too, if you think you're interested in that track, because you'll be making more money than a PhD student, and you'll have a career that's already well established by the time the PhD student is done, or with this postdoc or whatever. So that's the thing to think about, Dixon, or whoever might be thinking about those kind of career tracks. Getting a job and making money versus kind of doing this student thing forever. I mean, I was glad I did it, but it was a sacrifice. I mean,
right.
Thank you, sir.
In some ways, if I was going to do it over again, I would maybe consider nursing or high school teacher or a lot of other careers, just because I know I'd be making bang. Because getting a PhD in nursing would pretty much be a guarantee to get a professorship. You can believe it or not, because they're in demand. There's not many people that get a nursing degree and then go on and have a PhD in it. But at that point, why don't you just become a nurse, anesthetist? There's so many jobs out there where smart people can be making big money, but they don't, And you'll eventually you may want big money. So
money is important also. Yeah.
But I was really glad for my career that I've had. And like I said, I've been able to do quite a bit of research here. I just need to be more serious about publishing, but it's easy to have one other distractions so. It sounds like does anybody else have any more questions? It sounds like Dixon's had quite a few good ones, and if not, maybe we should probably call it an end for tonight. It's been a great discussion, I feel.
Yeah, it was nice questions from the audience.
All right. Well, it sounds like this is the end then. Thank you, Imtiaz. You did a great job.
Thank you, Dr. Maser, for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I hope you all have a good rest of a pseudo spring break, even if it isn't officially a spring break this week. Take care, everybody, and good night.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye, sir.
Good night. Good night.
Yes, sir.
Kylie said, excellent speaker, Imtiaz.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
I agree. You're going to be a great professor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this nice word.
A lot of good words. Thank you. Thank you. And nice to have Amar come and visit.
Yeah, it was also nice. Yeah.
I don't, Imtiaz, I don't know if you want to, I think you're probably ready to get something to eat. So I want to thank you again.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking Dr. Maser, is it possible provide me, I gave a seminar. So is it possible to give me some kind of document so that I can use it in my CV also in the future? I am at this point. Yeah, sure.
Go ahead and give me back control, and then I'm going to turn off recording.
So what should I do?
Just make me or maybe I can do it. Let me see if I can just make myself the host again. I'll make me the host again.
should I say,
I think it's just go to my name and then change me over to host again.
yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
I'm gonna stop recording. So I'll just use just the PhD